Good morning. Good morning to you on this beautiful day in Williamsburg County, because every day is a beautiful day in Williamsburg County. We are about to embark upon a panel discussion with these illustrious individuals sitting here. My name is Loretta Wilson, and I have the pleasure of having the opportunity to ask these beautiful brains some information, and they will impart to you the answers. We're going to start off by having each one of them introduce themselves. You just heard from this gentleman, and I don't know, he's hard to forget, and then we'll pass the mic on down and come back with the questions.
Good morning, I'm Tyler Barr with Black River United Way, and I'm the Director of Education/Student Success.
I am Berlinda N. Mack. I am the Director for Early Childhood and Elementary Instruction for Williamsburg County School District.
Good morning, the name is Jarvis Johnson. I am the instructional coach at W.M. Anderson Primary School.
Yes. Thank you guys for sharing your titles and positions, but we know that everyone in this room is more than a title and position. We thank you for your purpose. We're going to start with you, Dr. Dickey. Briefly describe your approach to engaging Black males in literacy. How do you encourage or engage Black males to read a variety of literary texts?
I'm a former English teacher, thank you, Maureen. I'm a former English teacher by profession, and one of the major responsibilities that I had was teaching, 17-year-olds who were afraid to reveal that they were struggling. And so, I know the question is about Black males, but I think what you do for one, you do for all. And so a strategy for a Black male is a strategy for a Black female. It's a strategy for a child of Latin descent. It's a strategy for any child. And so I think we have to help kids not to be intimidated by the text that they have in front of them. Because what they'll do is they'll engage in fight or flight. And so I think it's important in the classroom, and then I'll speak about the home, but I'll be brief. In the classroom, it is to say to children, we're all in the same boat. And what I mean by the same boat is that we all have similar challenges academically. So then my responsibility to children is to say, let me meet you where you are. And so I don't want you to be afraid of this text. I'm going to bring you up to it. And you've heard me say this in my keynote address. It is to give our children a highlighter and then give them a moment to tell you which words in the text they see that they might have difficulty pronouncing out loud. And then talk to them about how to pronounce those words. That's phonics. And then with that same highlighter, highlight words that kids might have difficulty understanding. Talk about those words and what they mean, and those words probably have word parts in the Latin and the Greek. Talk about what those words mean, and then read that paragraph. And then you end up giving kids access to the text. Any text, whether it's historical, scientific, literary, or not, they'll have access to it and they won't be afraid of that text, and they'll be more likely to engage in the instruction.
Thank you, sir. What you really contextualize is comprehension.
Yeah.
Because you can read something, but are you comprehending what you read? Yeah. And if you have that understanding, you become more comfortable with the information. So that is a great approach. Mrs. Mack, what role does early childhood literacy development play in long-term educational success?
Well, research has proven that literacy is the foundation for academic achievement and lifelong learning, which contributes to academic success. I believe that the demonstration that Dr. Dickey just recently provided proves that for children as early as birth. We heard the demonstration of the mother who spoke to her child, even though the child was 5 months old. And the demonstration that he provided with our scholar here this morning proves that early childhood is the foundation, and that we should be speaking to our children. They should be learning at a level of success in their early years, because that helps to build the foundation for success as they move from one grade to the next. We know that children, when they are engaged in high-level instruction as early as birth, they matriculate through school, whether it's the career path, a college path, or whatever, because that foundation has been laid. When we heard from our school board member, Ms. Israel, she spoke about the print-rich environment, exposing our children to words, to books, putting those books in their hands, showing them how to hold the book, showing them the words on the book, the print in the book. All of that helps to build that foundation for success in literacy, which equals success in life. And they're more prone, or they tend to perform at a rate higher when that foundation for literacy has been laid in the early years.
Thank you, ma'am. It is certainly imperative that we get that in that infant to 5-year-old stage, making sure they understand words, they're looking at them, and they're, absorbing them. So I think the statistics showed that if a child isn't on grade level with reading by 3rd grade, they're more likely to not graduate high school or end up in, some correctional facility. And that's unfortunate. I'm either going to build a new school at this time, or I'm going to build a new prison. So we certainly need to, focus on the importance of capturing, literacy at that young age, the importance of reading those books at home. Do they still have the Dolly Parton Foundation that provides the free books?
So it's great that you asked that question. As the early childhood director, I serve on the First Steps board, and we had that discussion in our last meeting. The Dolly Parton Foundation provides books to children as early as soon as they're born, they get free books. And so that is an initiative, but also we have to, what we're watching is just the impacts of the cuts that are being made and how that's going to pan out. But from what I've known and what I've understood about the children who get the books through the Dolly Parton Foundation, those books are meaningful. Putting those books in the hands of children, I heard Dr. Dickey speak on his success growing up. And for children who live in poverty, having books that they can actually own and use in their homes is important, because that's something that traditionally, parents don't always, that's not on the top of their shopping list. So to provide that book to a child, and so what we're doing here today, as you walked in, you saw us giving the books. Books, I always equate this to this, Ms. Moretta. You never hear about people breaking into a Barnes & Noble. How many people how many bookstores have been broken into? They don't. That's not where they go. And so if a child takes a book at school and we can give them that book, that's a prized possession. So yes, that Dolly Parton Foundation, where they get those books, are important. And so, we're just concerned with the level of cuts that we're seeing, if that's going to be something that we can sustain in our county.
A Barnes & Noble, a library, that's probably where the most valuable information is.
Yes.
If you want to become that millionaire and billionaire, that's where you're going to get that information.
That's
but like
where
you said, we're not clamoring to get to that location. We're worried about every place else. I love the way you said nobody's broken into a Barnes & Noble, but we should be. We should be waiting for the doors to open.
Right.
So I thank you for sharing that. Mr. Johnson, how do you overcome challenges of students who are struggling readers in grades 3 through 8?
Great question. Thank you for that. I overcome challenges of students who are struggling in reading in grades 3 through 8, first of all, by ensuring that scholars see the relationship between letters and sounds. I love the presentation that Dr. Dickey has given. It resonated with me greatly because you want to make certain that scholars are able to have great word attack skills when they're reading text. Also, I make certain that I speak to my scholars' interests. You want to make certain that you have books that really resonate with our scholars, ensuring that they actually see themselves in it. Definitely knowing your population and who you're serving, so making sure that they see text that represents them. Also, I make certain that I build upon reading comprehension, ensuring that scholars are utilizing text features that's there, looking at the title, understanding that the title builds that main idea, possibly even looking at pictures to get more information, because those text features are there to build up that comprehension. So ensuring that our scholars can utilize exactly the resources that's given before them. And also making certain that they're able to communicate well, making sure that they're able to write stories or even tell stories, because that oral communication is also important. Because the more they're putting these ideas into their mind and generating ideas, it builds upon their comprehension as well. And so I truly like the fact that our scholars, many of them like to play video games. And I was just talking to a colleague, and she was saying how we can even have our scholars give directions on how to play a video game, because that would be that media exposure that they would have, and then that would build upon their oral communication as well.
All excellent points. Meeting children where they are. If, representation matters. We're not just talking about color, we're talking about age. If I'm a little kid, I don't want to read a story about some old people. Let me read some stories about some, little kids like me. This is who I am. Oh, I have a ball like that. I have a bike like that. And you talked about the oratorical skills. Very important. You break down that barrier of having the fear of public speaking, and they don't even realize it. So just weaving all of those things together just really seemed to set a foundation. So thank you for your innovation in that regard and connecting all of those dots. Because a lot of times you're reading, you have your language arts, we're writing, but you forget about the speaking component. And if I can give you instructions on how to do something, it becomes easier for you to communicate. So all of these things go hand in hand, because we get so stuck with social media. You can be in the same room and we're texting each other. Mm-hmm. Let's get back to conversation. So that's definitely great, sir. Dr. Dickey, we're going to circle back to you for a moment.
Okay.
What type of supports are needed to ensure that literacy spreads beyond the walls of the classroom? How can we further promote literacy in our community?
Great question, thank you. For me, I think the key term in that question is community. Because I think it's difficult to serve folks without a connection to where they are. So for me, literacy opportunity is missed in the barbershop. So I think when kids go to the barbershop, there ought to be a book that they can pick up that's consistent with their interests to read. Or maybe not consistent with their interests, because they need to read outside of their interest base as well. So how can the school district, philanthropic partners, community partners, the business community support children having access to books where they go? And I know they go to the barbershop, because I see these shape-ups. So go where they go. Put the resource where they go. The same could be said about the beauty shop. I don't know if y'all still call it that. Is it called a beauty shop? What y'all call it? The salon? Oh, y'all sophisticated. Y'all move along. Y'all call it the salon.
A boutique experience.
A boutique, yeah. So y'all know how long y'all be gone, because I'm victim of y'all being gone a long time. So I know y'all been there for 3 or 4 hours, and so I think the books have to show up in the salon. Now, outside of that, I think it's important for the books to show up at home. And so when we are, buying those Christmas gifts and birthday gifts, I think some of those gifts have to be books. And then finally, I think, book fairs. I remember being a kid and going to the Scholastic Book Fair. Did y'all know I'm the international author of Scholastic Reading Program, kindergarten through 6th grade. It's used in the U.S. and 7 other countries. Yeah. And so, as the author of their reading program, I'm not promoting their stuff, but what I'm saying is, everybody remembers the Scholastic Book Fair. And I used to have a little Ziploc bag with some dollar bills in it and some coins my grandmother gave me. And boy, I was in that line trying to get as many books as I could. And so, because I wanted to see the world through the books, I lived my life in a 5-mile radius. And so books helped me to see the world. And so then, last but not least, I don't know if y'all still go to church, but I think churches can get involved. Because what the pastor says is gospel, pardon the pun. But I think some of this, when kids are, about to fall asleep in church, take one of those books, put those books in the pew, and open this book, y'all, read this book, stay awake. Okay, and so they'll get the word, they'll get it vicariously by just being in the room. Okay, all right, so that's what I think.
And you just unlocked core nostalgia for me. The Scholastic Book Fair was the thing that everybody looked forward to, I think. Or maybe that was just a nerd in me. I studied that little brochure from front to back, and I was making my selections, and my mother would look, and then she'd laugh, and yeah, you can scratch half of that off. Because, out of the whole brochure, I probably had 3/4 of it marked. Dwindled that down a little bit, but it was an exciting time, and it made reading seem fun. Yeah. And so we have to find a way to make things fun for children. And it seemed to be incentivized, but our parents were the incentivizers. They had to finance it, but it was just a special time. And I think if we can find ways to unlock that feeling in children again. We, go back to what Mr. Johnson said, these children are playing these video games. Let's tap into that. Let's find a way to make these things, as exciting as possible. So that just really, for me, back in the day, somebody born in the 1900s, how I feel about, what was important and what meant something. Ms. Barr, what role does the United Way play in promoting literacy within the community?
So the Black River United Way serves Williamsburg and Georgetown County. We have a solution called Youth Opportunity, and it focuses on kindergarten readiness and 3rd grade reading success. So we want to have the consent of Williamsburg County to work with them and our community stakeholders to supply these programs in the schools so to be able for the community.
And we're grateful for that partnership of United Way in Williamsburg County. Like you said, it's in Williamsburg and Georgetown County, Black River United Way, but it's very important. You have Mission Read and Mission Ready. So Mission Read, making sure that children know how to read, and Mission Ready, making sure that when they get to 4K or kindergarten, they already know how to read or are ready to get to the point of beginning reading. So we thank you for the initiatives that United Way brings to this community. Mrs. Mack, how does your district role align to the district's literacy mission?
That's a big question, and it's a big role. With the demands of the state standards, starting at kindergarten and up, trying to fulfill our district's mission and making sure that all of our scholars are career and college ready, career and or college ready. My role as the director is to work alongside with our administrators, our teachers, our coaches, to ensure that the instruction that we are providing for our scholars mirror that as it aligns to our state standards. The kindergarten standards, if you were to look at the kindergarten standards, kindergarten is no longer the kindergarten of 5 years ago. The expectations for them to be reading before they leave kindergarten is nothing new. And so trying to work alongside with our teachers to ensure that this happens, that's how my role plays into that. We are working under the umbrella of our state standards and the expectations for all of our children, as you said, to be reading before they leave 3rd grade. Reading on grade level before 3rd grade. So that mandate to fulfill that, to ensure that we are aligned, my role is just to merely work alongside with our teachers. We do have several of our teachers currently enrolled in our state's letters coursework, which ensures that even at pre-K, it was just implemented, and in the fall, our 4th grade and 5th grade teachers will be a part of that. What Dr. Dickey demonstrated earlier was letters. We saw that when he had us sounding out the words, clapping the words, saying the words. That's a part of our pre-K program. And so I just wanted to just piggyback on something that was stated in terms of that literacy. Putting those books in our children's hands is first, it's a priority to ensure that our classrooms are literacy print rich, to ensure that we have reading materials accessible for all of our kids based on their interests. That's important. We have our children participating in Battle of the Books. We have accelerated reading, so we're trying to expose them to everything. And this year we went back to the spelling bee. Children learning those spelling words. Our schools were having their school level spelling bee. We had Kingstree Middle Magnet participating in our regional spelling bee competition at Francis Marion this year. So we're excited about that. So just making sure that we have that home school connection, as you stated. I'm grateful to work alongside some great parents and liaisons, and I do want to thank them, those that are here today, for being here. I commend you all for coming out. They are the key to what you just stated, getting those parents involved. Their schools are organizing literacy nights. They're having parenting workshops, making sure our parents understand what reading, what literacy looks like in the tradition that it is now. And so that part of my job is just to ensure that we continue that guideline following our district as well as our state's mandates.
Well, thank you for taking on the role. You shared a lot of information. I know that's not an easy task, but we know that you're up to task to handle it. And those standardized tests, we don't know how much pressure that is for a young child. So making sure that you're incorporating all of these things that you just mentioned really gets them to, I think, release the anxiety a little bit. You have the family night situations and things of that nature. The children don't, when people don't realize they're learning something, that's the best. That's the way you feed them, you give them the medicine with the dessert. And so, so I thank you for sharing that information, and hopefully folks are signing up for those programs. And if you haven't already, if you don't know already, please get with Mrs. Mack so she can share that information with you. We're going to wrap up this panel discussion with one final question, and that's going to be to you, Dr. Dickey. I hear educators say we want to focus on a student's background in order for academic success to take place. Where should the focus be when teaching students to read? Is it relevant to aspirations and interests, background, or social identities?
Sure. Great question. So, Loretta, I want to answer a question, but I want to go back to something you said in your opening comments, or I think it was in response to a fellow panel member's sentiment. You talked about the link between literacy and the penal system. And I think it's important that we draw attention to that statistic, that unfortunate statistic. When children don't read at the grade level expectation by the end of grade 3, which is age 8, 67% of those children grow up and end up in the penal system. 2/3, 67% of all children who don't read on grade level end up in jail. Yo, that's a scary number.
It is very.
It's a setup, really, when you think about it. And so when I hear Mac talking about, I'm sorry I call him Mac because we go back. That's my girl. I was visiting schools with Mac and a few others a few months back, and she had us in a church van, y'all. Y'all know what a church van is? The seatbelts wouldn't quite work. I'm climbing over seats. It's hot as hell outside. It's hot as heck outside.
In the church van.
That's how Mac and I go back. We've been in church vans together. Right. So, but what we're trying to do under Dr. Williams' leadership is to, not be so heavenly minded that we're no earthly good to children.
How about that?
So we're in and out of that church van from school to school to school, going to go see how kids are being served. Because we know if they don't end up reading, they could end up in jail. You see what I'm saying? So I'm climbing over the seats with everybody else to get in the church van. Right. And so, to answer your question, Loretta, if we want kids to be successful academically, we have to understand, I know this is a background question, but I'm going to spin it. Background is very closely connected to access. Because some people think background means race, but it doesn't. Background means the access that you're being given in a community. That's your background. Right? So I know things about government cheese. It doesn't melt fast. Or at all. Y'all, some of y'all too young to know about government cheese. Or peanut butter in a black and white can and just say peanut butter on the label. No Jiffy. So background for me is not about race, it's about access. And so what do kids need access to because their background may not be characterized by a flowery bed of ease? So they need in their instructional, in their home experience, I said this before, but I'll say it again, there are 5 things you need to make sure kids are successful. Number 1, decoding. They see letters, they know what sounds to make. And sometimes our children are taught by adults in critical years who did not give them enough of it. That's their background. Okay, and then secondly, they must know how to create meaning, which means after they pronounce it, they must know what it means at the same rate. Number 3, I heard somebody say it, but I'm going to connect it here. Give the children access to books that are consistent with their interest base. Because they'll grapple through reading a difficult book if it's inside of their interest base. Y'all with me? And therefore become literate, like you said, learning without even knowing they're learning. And then number 4, the gentleman on the panel said it, but I'll say it again, I'm connecting all the dots. Children need access to books that are representative of windows, which means they're able to see the world because they have limited finances, and so they see France through a book before they can see it in person. Right? They see the U.S. Capitol in the book before they can see it in person. That's windows. And then number 5 is mirrors. They ought to be able, when they're learning how to read and how to think and how to write and how to speak and how to listen, the books to which they have access must give them access to mirrors, which means they must see what? Themselves. So it is malpractice for a child to have gone through elementary school and never see a character in a book that resembles them. It's malpractice. So decoding, creative meaning, interests, windows, and mirrors. You do that, you're going to get the alchemy or the chemistry of literacy. All right?
So essentially, it's a science to it.
Oh, yeah.
It's a science to all things, and we need to understand what's necessary, what elements are we putting together to make sure that we're giving our children the best options and the best access. Like you said, that is the key. We're in a rural community, so oftentimes we forget that there's a library in the school. There may be a library in town, but I live 5 miles outside of town. I live with my grandmother. My grandmother does not have reliable transportation. So access means a lot. So making those connections and finding out where we can bridge gaps. We certainly thank each and every one of these panelists this morning for their wisdom and their time. Please give them a hand of applause. And again, we thank Williamsburg County School District for putting on this wonderful event of Literacy Day. Thank you.